picture this. You just survived a brutal work week. You collapse on the couch, right? You barely move for like 48 hours as you just binge watch some prestige drama.
Right, the classic weekend recovery plan.
Exactly. You are quote unquote resting. Yet neurologists have actually found that during this kind of passive binging, your brain exhibits the exact same stress markers as it does when you're completely overwhelmed at the office.
Which is just wild to think about.
It is. And you wake up Monday morning feeling, honestly, more fragmented and drained and foggy than when you left on Friday. So the question is, why is your downtime actively exhausting you?
Yeah, it really feels like a glitch in the human experience, doesn't it? I mean, we have access to more effortless entertainment than literally any generation in history.
Oh, absolutely.
A king 100 years ago couldn't just, summon 1,000 movies with his thumb. And yet we are all perpetually exhausted. We're fundamentally misunderstanding the biological mechanics of recovery.
And that is exactly the mission of our deep dive into the source material today. We are looking at this stack of really fascinating research, specifically frameworks on mastering active leisure and the surprising keys to genuine rest.
It's a game changer, really.
It is. The goal here is to basically shortcut your path to becoming a better steward of your own free time, to rescue it from those digital algorithms.
Okay, let's unpack this. What is actually happening inside our nervous systems when we are, like, lying motionless on a couch thinking we're recovering?
Well, the primary confusion is that we mistake mental numbing for actual physiological and psychological recovery. The sources look really deeply at this distinction between passive entertainment and active leisure.
Right.
So passive entertainment, endless scrolling, binge watching it has an incredibly low cognitive load. It demands absolutely nothing from you other than just acting as a receptacle for stimuli.
But I mean, intuitively, if my brain is tired, giving it a low cognitive load feels like the right move, right? Like if I run a marathon, I rest by sitting down. Shouldn't the brain work the same way? You would think so, but it's exactly the opposite, according to the research. When you're passively consuming, your brain isn't actually resting. It's being continuously bombarded by these microstimuli.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, like rapid visual cuts in a TV show or the unpredictable dopamine spikes of a social media feed. That keeps your nervous system in this state of low-grade hyperarousal.
Oh, man. So you aren't doing any conscious mental work, but your brain is still frantically processing a fire hose of sensory data.
Exactly.
It's like the engine is still revving at the red line, but the car is in neutral.
That is a great way to put it, actually. And the result is this phenomenon the literature calls phantom fatigue.
Phantom fatigue.
Yeah, it's that heavy, lethargic, bone-deep exhaustion you feel after, 2 hours of scrolling on your phone. You haven't done a single physical or productive thing, but your dopamine receptors are just completely fried. It creates a crash that mimics physical exhaustion.
It makes me think of eating junk food when you're starving for actual nutrition.
Oh, perfect analogy.
Right. Because it takes zero effort to rip open a bag of chips. In the moment, your brain gets the salt and the crunch, and it signals, yes, calories, this will solve the problem.
Right, but it doesn't.
No. An hour later, you feel physically worse because you gave your body empty filler. It needed protein and vitamins to rebuild, and you gave it air.
Yeah, you are overfed but deeply undernourished. To get that actual nutrition, we really have to look at active leisure. If we go all the way back to antiquity, the Greek root of our modern word for school is, it's skol.
Skol. Okay.
And back then, skol didn't mean sitting at a desk memorizing facts. It originally meant deliberate, noble free time. For the Greeks, rest was never defined as the absence of effort. It was defined as the presence of engagement.
The presence of engagement. I mean, that completely flips the modern definition of a weekend on its head.
It really does.
We usually define our weekends by what we don't have to do.
Which leaves this massive vacuum that passive entertainment easily fills. Active leisure demands participation. It requires a moderate, sometimes even high cognitive load. And paradoxically, applying effort to something meaningful doesn't drain you further. It actually generates energy. It moves you into a flow state, restoring a sense of agency that maybe your day job stripped away.
I want to dig into what a nutritious leisure diet actually looks like, because moving from a spectator to a participant sounds great in theory. But the first major pillar the framework suggests is generative craft and creation. And honestly, that sounds a little intimidating.
It does sound intimidating, which is why the framework insists that before you pick up a tool or a paintbrush, you have to adopt the amateur mindset.
Okay, the amateur mindset.
Yeah, you basically have to sign a mental permission slip allowing yourself to produce utter garbage.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the word amateur in our culture is basically an insult. If someone calls your work amateurish, you failed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have completely weaponized the concept of hobbies. We think if we learn to knit, we need to eventually open an online store and sell our scarves, you know?
Right, the Etsy pressure.
Yes. Or if we bake sourdough, it needs to look perfect for a photograph. The amateur mindset violently rejects that. When you take up woodworking or sketch journaling or cooking a wildly complex meal, the restorative value is emphatically not in the final product.
So where is it?
The renewal happens inside the tactile struggle.
Ah, because you are forcing the brain to deal with the physical world instead of a digital abstraction.
Yes, exactly. There is a deep biological satisfaction in proprioception.
Proprioception, that's the awareness of your body moving through space.
Yeah, to manipulate an object. When you are sanding a piece of wood or feeling the tension of yarn, your brain is engaging in this closed feedback loop. You applied force, the material reacts, you adjust.
Right.
That physical problem solving untangles the background anxiety of your day in a way a screen just never could.
And the sources connect this tactile struggle to something called the blue car theory, which I loved.
Oh, yeah. You know the phenomenon where you buy a blue car and suddenly the very next day you see blue cars at every single stoplight?
Oh, yeah. You think the whole town suddenly went car shopping at the exact same time.
Right. But what's actually happening is your reticular activating system, or RAS, has shifted its filtering.
Okay, remind me what the RAS does again.
It's a bundle of nerves at our brainstem that filters out the billions of bits of sensory data we encounter every second. It only lets in what it deems important. So when you engage in a physical craft, you are giving your RAS a new set of instructions.
So if my hobby is throwing pottery, and I give myself permission to be completely terrible at it,
Yeah.
I'm still training my brain's filter.
Exactly. You spend an hour on a Saturday just feeling the wet clay, noticing how it pulls and dries. Without even trying, your brain rewires to notice hidden textures in reality.
Wow.
Yeah. The next time you drink your morning coffee, you'll unconsciously notice the glaze, the weight, and the curve of the mug in your hand. If you take up amateur gardening, you don't just see a park anymore when you walk the dog.
Yeah, you see the details.
You notice the moisture of the soil, the subtle differences in the leaves, the whole ecosystem.
It's like your brain is the bouncer at a club, and usually it's just kicking out all the small details. But your hobby puts those details on the VIP list. Suddenly, the world is just richer in resolution.
The framework calls this the rewilding of the mind. You are anchoring your attention back in physical reality, which is the ultimate antidote to that algorithmic haze.
Look, I hear all of this, the rewilding, the tactile feedback, the VIP bouncer in my brain, but I have to push back here on behalf of the listener.
Go for it.
Imagine someone sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic right now. Their inbox has 140 unread emails they slept 5 hours, telling them, hey, you should go home and start a complex woodworking project. It just sounds like piling a second job on top of their first one.
It's the most common and totally valid reaction to this entire concept. I mean, I've fallen victim to it myself. Oh yeah, a few years ago, I bought this beautiful acoustic guitar, fully convinced it would be my act of rest. It sat in a case in the back of a closet for 18 months because every time I looked at it after a long workday, my brain just screamed, no, we are way too tired for that.
So how do you bridge that gap? Because the couch and the TV take half a calorie of effort, and learning a chord progression feels like climbing Everest.
We are dealing with activation energy. It's a concept from thermodynamics, but it heavily applies to our psychology. Your brain is a strict energy-conserving machine.
Right.
When it's depleted, it perceives any new effort as a literal threat to its glucose reserves. So the secret isn't mustering more willpower to fight your brain. The secret is operational strategy. And the most effective tactical hack in the research is the 10-minute rule.
A 10-minute rule sounds suspiciously simple. Is the idea that if I just suffer through 10 minutes of reading a dense book, my brain somehow forgets it was exhausted.
Sort of, but it's really about disarming the amygdala. The 10-minute rule says you commit to the active pursuit, putting on your running shoes, opening the philosophy book, getting the guitar out, and you set a timer for exactly 10 minutes.
Okay.
You tell yourself, we are only doing this until the timer rings. Then we can stop.
Ah, so you are giving the brain an out. You are actively lowering the perceived stakes of the effort.
Exactly. You bypass the fear of commitment. But here is the biological trick. If the timer goes off and you are genuinely to your core still exhausted, you stop. Zero guilt.
Good to know.
But the data shows that 90% of the time, the exhaustion was an illusion created by starting friction. By minute 7, the Zeigarnik effect kicks in.
Which is what exactly?
It's the psychological tendency to want to complete a task once it's started. The friction just evaporates, flow takes hold, and you actually want to keep going.
Because the pain wasn't in the activity itself. The pain was entirely in the transition.
Exactly.
But surely a mental trick isn't enough if, like, my phone is buzzing right next to the book I'm trying to read.
Which is why the second half of the strategy is environmental design. You have to manipulate friction. You make passive choices structurally infuriating and active choices incredibly seamless.
Okay, give me an example of making a passive choice infuriating. I love this idea.
The research suggests instituting the 3-minute barrier. For instance, unplug the television power cord and physically put it in a drawer in another room.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, or log out of all your streaming platforms on your smart TV. If you want to binge a show, you have to find the cord, plug it in, boot it up, and manually retype a complex password using those little directional arrows on the remote control.
Wait, if I have to type my email address with a TV remote, I mean, that takes, what, 3 minutes of pure frustration? Is the goal just to make me hate my TV?
The goal is to outlast your dopamine craving window. Craving a cheap dopamine hit is like a wave. It peaks intensely, but usually subsides within 2 to 3 minutes.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Right. If the structural friction of getting the hit takes longer than the craving peak, the brain just gives up. It says, you know what, this isn't worth the calories.
Ah, so while I'm cursing at the letter Q in the screen, the craving actually dies. And I assume you do the inverse for the good habits.
Precisely. Leave the guitar out of the case on a stand right in the middle of the living room. Put the physical book on top of your pillow in the morning so you physically have to move it to go to sleep. Keep the running shoes tied and by the door. You strip away every single micro step of activation energy.
All right. I can see how rewilding my mind with a hobby and hacking my environment makes sense. But my worry is, won't I just turn this into another optimization to-do list?
It's a valid concern.
Because sometimes I literally cannot do anything. Like, I don't want to play guitar or read. I want to be a puddle. Is there a restorative way to just do nothing, or is that a myth?
What's fascinating here is how our modern environment has fundamentally altered the whole concept of doing nothing. Because we have a supercomputer in our pockets, we have effectively eliminated boredom from the human experience. If you are in line at the grocery store for 12 seconds, the phone comes out.
It's true. I don't even realize I'm doing it half the time. My hand just acts on its own.
Right. And by eliminating boredom, we have destroyed the crucial mental space where our minds process and untangle information. When you are truly bored, your brain activates the default mode network, or DMN.
Okay.
This network is responsible for memory consolidation, self-reflection, and connecting completely disparate ideas. True leisure requires what the sources call intentional boredom. It is the fertile soil for creativity.
But staring at a blank wall sounds agonizing. I mean, my thoughts get so loud when I don't have a podcast or a video distracting me.
They are loud because they have been backed up in traffic all day. You have to let them flow through. The framework suggests starting small with a transition ritual.
What does that look like?
When you finish your workday, before you merge into your personal evening, you sit in a chair in total silence for 5 minutes. 0 inputs. No screens, no music, no reading, just silence.
It's like a palate cleanser served between courses of a really heavy meal.
Exactly.
Because if you go straight from the spicy, stressful main course of a work crisis right into the delicate dessert of dinner with your family, your taste buds are overwhelmed. You can't properly experience your evening if your mind is still chewing on the workday. The silence just washes the palate.
I love that. The palate cleanser allows you to actually taste your own life again. And it works best when paired with structural boundaries. The research highly recommends creating analog desks or analog zones in your home where screens are physically banned. No exceptions.
And what about scheduling this? Should I block off my calendar with, like, boredom 6.0 to 6.05 p.m.?
The research strongly advises against that. Rigid scheduling kills the psychological feeling of freedom, which is mandatory for school. Using a contextual cue, like after work, is much more effective than a hard timestamp like 6.0 p.m. That just feels like another corporate deadline.
There's another piece of this doing nothing concept in the sources that really stood out to me. They call it somatic rest or unmediated movement.
Yes. This is one of the most vital practices. Somatic rest is about moving physical stress out of the nervous system. It means walking, hiking, or swimming, but explicitly unmediated. No headphones, no audiobooks, no step-counting apps.
Which is incredibly hard for my brain to accept. If I go for a 45-minute walk and I don't listen to an educational deep dive, I feel like I'm completely wasting the time.
Right.
I could have been quote-unquote productive.
There is a deep biological reason why the walk must be silent, though. When you walk, your body engages in bilateral stimulation, that alternating left-right rhythm of your limbs and your vision. This bilateral movement actually calms the amygdala. It's the exact same mechanism used in EMDR therapy to process trauma. By walking without a podcast shouting facts at you, you allow the bilateral stimulation to process the background stress of your day. The environment dictates the rhythm, and your nervous system finally gets to exhale.
So what does this all mean? We have this new portfolio of active leisure. We're embracing the messy amateur mindset. We're hacking our environment to get past activation energy. And we are taking silent walks to calm our amygdala.
Yeah, that's the core of it.
But how do I ensure I'm actually resting? How do I audit a weekend to see if this is working without turning it into some stressful grading system?
The sources offer a brilliant low-stakes tool called the post-leisure test, which is essentially just a 2-minute retrospective. Right after you finish an activity, you check in with your internal state using a few specific metrics.
Okay, what are the indicators that I just engaged in high-quality generative leisure?
You ask yourself, do I feel clearer, calmer, and more capable? Do I feel more like myself? Did I experience a flow state where time kind of melted away? Did I walk away with a sense of agency or a tangible artifact, even if that artifact was a terrible, crooked birdhouse?
And on the flip side, what are the red flags?
If you feel physically numb, if your brain feels foggy and your body feels restless, and the biggest red flag of all, if you finish the activity and your immediate desperate instinct is to grab your phone and find a new digital input.
Oh, wow.
If an hour of TV makes you want to scroll Instagram the second the credits roll, the TV didn't restore you. It just paused your depletion.
I want to clarify something crucial for the listener here.
Hmm.
We aren't tracking these questions to measure our productivity, right? Because the instinct is to say, I successfully rested today, I get an A+.
That is a critical distinction. The goal is to be generative, not productive.
Degenerative.
Right. Productivity is an economic term. It is entirely about output, efficiency, and optimization. Generative is a human term. It's about renewal, growth, and connection. We are trying to generate life, not produce metrics.
Generative, not productive. I love that.
To cement this, the retrospective asks you to note 2 quick things in your mind. First, what felt difficult. Maybe the first 10 minutes of the silent walk were excruciatingly boring.
Yeah.
Second, what felt surprising. Maybe you noticed a bizarre architectural detail on a building you've walked past 100 times.
Wait, why am I noting what felt difficult? Doesn't that just make me want to avoid it next time?
Actually, it relies on neuroplasticity. By consciously acknowledging the friction, saying, yes, starting that book was hard, and then acknowledging the surprising reward, but the chapter was fascinating. You are training your brain that initial friction does not equal danger.
Oh, that is so smart.
You are actively rewiring your dopamine system to stop demanding cheap, instantaneous hits and start valuing the deeper satisfaction of discovery.
Looking at the totality of these sources, the shift we are talking about is truly monumental. We are moving away from this passive survival mode idea of killing time until Monday morning and moving toward the deliberate stewardship of time.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it changes the entire geometry of how we view our lives. Time is the most scarce, non-renewable resource we have. It is a beautiful canvas.
Absolutely.
Meaningful rest asks something of you. It requires your attention, your physical presence, and the humility to be a beginner. But engaging with reality is the only way to genuinely recover from the demands of modern life.
It really is. And I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked a lot today about the amateur mindset. Giving yourself the grace to be terrible at a hobby, to produce absolute garbage just for the sake of the tactile experience and the joy of the process.
Right.
But what if we took that concept out of the wood shop or the garden and applied it to everything else? What if we applied that exact same amateur mindset to our everyday relationships or even our careers?
That's a profound idea.
Think about it. We spend massive amounts of energy trying to perfectly optimize our interactions, trying to look like polished, flawless professionals in every single aspect of our lives. It is exhausting. What if we allowed ourselves to focus purely on the messy, tactile process of living?
Yeah.
What if we stopped constantly evaluating the final polished outcome of who we are and just engaged in the messy doing of it? How much more deeply restful could our entire lives become if we just gave ourselves permission to be an amateur at life?
Wow.
It's something to think about the next time you find yourself reaching for the remote, because the ultimate choice for your next free hour is yours. Will you let an algorithm fill your canvas, or will you take up the brush?